My name is Dr. Aisha Elamine, and I welcome you to our Talim today on behalf of the resident Imam, Imam Tariq Elamine, and the Talim Committee, which is chaired by myself and with my beautiful colleagues, Dr. Lionel Allen and Dr. Gloria Bashir. We are really excited to have you here with us today. As many of you know, and if you don't, this Talim, as well as others, and our khutbahs from Al-Taqwa can be found on our YouTube channel, Al-Taqwa Chicago. Please subscribe if you have not already. This is being recorded. We have a beautiful presentation today by our long time founding member, imam, doctor, like everything that you can name. We love and appreciate Dr. Ramadan. And today he's going to present one African-American family's journey from city life to the Northwoods, 40 acres in a mule homesteading. So without further ado, I turn the mic over to Dr. Ramadan.
Assalamu alaikum. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lahu. Ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu rasuluhu. Sallallahu alayhi wasallam. I'd like to thank our Talim committee for this invitation to present today. And it is a topic that's close to my heart and been working on for several years now. So I'm very excited to share it with you. And I pray that you benefit to some extent from our presentation. In getting started, I'd like to sort of define the terms that I'll be using here. Because I have slightly different definitions for some of them than you may have been accustomed to. One thing that we will start out with is 40 acres. My title is, as she said, 40 Acres and a Mule, One African American's Family Journey from City Life to Northwoods Homesteading. So as I said, 40 acres. Many of us can't picture what 40 acres looks like. So you just consider about 30 football fields, and that's about 40 acres. Or for those who live in New York, consider about 8 New York City blocks one way, and then 8 New York City blocks the other way. And the amount of space that would entail would be 40 acres. Or one more example, it would be the equivalent of a quarter mile by a quarter mile. And that would contain 40 acres. So it's a fair size plot of land. Certainly not as big as many farms, but it's certainly bigger than many yards. So as regards to the mule that we're talking about, we're not talking about a regular animal mule. Our mule is a Polaris UTV four-wheeler. It, in my opinion, does way more work than a mule. It's about 75 horsepower, which is well more than enough that we use so far. I do plowing, hauling, grading, pulling the trail mower, and all sorts of general tasks on the property. It just multiplies my work capacity. And it was purchased along with other equipment, which is necessary to manage our forest and to maintain and advance our homestead. Since I mentioned homestead, let's describe what I mean by homestead. Keep in mind that we're not interested in going back in time to become early American pioneers. No, not at all. Your homestead is what you make it, not by any prior definition. You may have on your homestead domesticated animals or not. You may on your homestead raise goats, cows, chickens, sheep, or may not. On your homestead, you may sell homemade preserves, maple syrup, dehydrate goods, canning, sell seedlings, sew your own clothes, or you may not. These are things that when people think of homestead, they think of. It's not necessary to do all of that. But the important thing is that you have the capacity to do it. Okay, that's important. If we had to shift from what we're doing now to include those sorts of things, ideally, we want to be able to do it seamlessly. Shift from what we have to that sort of living if necessary. Indeed, we don't have anything against modern living, modern conveniences. We're not trying to run away from it. I enjoy it. In fact, with the internet and today's communication, just as we're using here, you can have a career in the Northwoods. You can go to school in the Northwoods, get an advanced degree in the Northwoods, or run a business or multiple businesses from the forest. I say all of that because we'll build on that point later. We simply don't completely depend on all of the modern conveniences and services. We use them. They're our go-to resources, but it's important to have backup in case these modern conveniences and services are no longer available. As we said, keep in mind, how we adjust the lifestyle is completely modifiable and updatable. So you will hear me during this presentation, I use interchangeably family cottage, family cabin, family retreat, our family property, our 40 acres, or our family legacy. So from city life to Northwoods, I guess you would call it modified hybrid homesteading. The important thing also that I haven't mentioned is to make it fun year-round recreation. And in that is also skills development. The family cabin, it's important not to have the family cabin as any family member's primary residence. When it's not a family residence,
you've reached the mail.
Imam, all right, you're fine now. Go.
right. Are we
from,
back?
yes, from primary residence.
Oh, okay, yes. It's important not to have the family cottage or family cabin as any one of your family's primary residence, okay? And so that it can be seen by all of your family members as a family resource. All of family members right now have homes, but they're not seen as anybody's family resource, okay? And later, you'll see that when it comes time for inheritance, you know, our homes we pass on to our children and they may sell them and take the money or whatever. It's important to structure this so that that doesn't happen. And there's ways to do this, and we'll get to that in a moment, inshallah. Before going into that aspect, we would like to give a historical, African-American historical reference to the 40 acres and a mule. You know, there was, after the Emancipation Proclamation and our enslaved ancestors were freed, they were simply let go. It's like being turned free in a city now. Anywhere you go, it's owned by someone. Also, keep this in mind. Practically, there's nowhere on the earth that there is unowned land. Okay? Everywhere you go, especially in America, you can't find an inch of unowned land. Even if it's by the government or the state government or private owners. Okay? Off of the side of the highway, parks, everything is owned. So our ancestors were freed and just said, let go. They didn't know where to go, nor how far they would go. The land was already owned. Okay? That's a terrible situation to be in. 40 acres and a mule was part of a special wartime field order by General William Tecumseh Sherman on January 16, 1865, during the Civil War. 40-acre plots were allotted to some freed families. But after Lincoln's assassination 3 months later, April 14, 1865, the order was reversed, and the land which those families had been given was returned to the white Confederate landowners. Progress, then the rug pulled out. We've seen that before, right? Freed slaves who had nowhere to go, no land, became sharecroppers, low-wage farm laborers, almost back to slaves again. And later, Jim Crow laws, poverty, and the promise of greater prosperity in the North attracted many millions of our people to go from the South to the North. And this is not unusual. Poverty, oppression caused the original pilgrims and seeking religious freedom to leave Europe and come to America. Same sorts of conditions caused the people to leave from Guatemala, Central America, and come to America today. Our ancestors felt it's too much to put up with all of this down south, and many of those factories were coming down and inviting Black people to come to the North and get good factory jobs. And we did. From 1915 to 1960, over 3.5 million of our people went from the South to the North, went to cities like Chicago, Detroit, Pittsburgh, New York, LA, Gary. All right. These are cities that we have high percentage populations even today. So this opportunity also came with vulnerabilities. In many instances, Our awareness and dependency on God and the land was exchanged for our dependency on politics, city services, and the electrical grid. And we benefited until those became shaky. All right? The fragile political system, the fragile electrical grid, climate change, fragile city and government services, and an often overextended, near broken emergency service system. All are what we face now. Okay? When those big factories and plants are outdated and being replaced by automation and robotics, we're facing the question, just like our ancestors did, after you no longer need cotton pickers, what happens with the people? When you no longer need factory workers and manual laborers, what happens to the people? They face the question, and to an extent, we face it today. Those who are most dependent on the system are most hurt when the system fails. What happened in that migration? There was an interruption of the intergenerational knowledge. Farming skills, survival skills, doing for self was all lost in the mix. Things that we didn't get from our grandfather and our fathers, from our grandmother and our mothers, got lost when we adapted to city life and existence. Okay? This has an impact on where we are today. We'd like to just mention something about the benefits, the health benefits from the forest. And keep in mind that we're not just partial to forest, even though it works for us, but it could be any land. If you're near shoreland, fine. If you're near a prairie, fine. If you're near swampland that you're used to living on, fine. If you're in the mountains and you have become experienced in mountain existence, fine. The key thing is that it's land that you can utilize for producing those things that you need. That's the important thing. For us, where we are, here in the Midwest, it was a forest. And we'll get to that in a moment. But the idea of the family cabin up north on the lake is an ideal that's in the back of our heads. And we often see it in movies and pictures that our family or anyone's family has a place, has some land, and the family goes there, and there's family memories established there, and great grandfather wrote something on the cabin wall, and each generation reads it, and swim in the lake and fish in the lake, and they're taught how to hunt. All of these things are just ideal, but real. I would guess if you would ask your coworkers, how many of you have a family cabin? you would be surprised at how many of your co-workers would tell you, oh yeah, we have something up there. It's not much, but we go up there sometimes. That's what they would tell you. Or you may have overheard them talking about, every summer we go up there and the kids go up there and they're excited about going up there. But not many of us have that. And there's reasons. And there's losses by not having that. See, these wonderful childhood memories that are made at the family cottage or cabin, or witnessing the fall leaves changing, the beautiful snowy winters and winter activities, and the spring tapping the trees to make maple syrup, and the summer activities of swimming and camping and canoeing. These are all very important. Spending time in nature in these green spaces. Even if you just go to the park in the city, you know it means something. It makes you feel better. It can be spiritually healing, a place to reflect and contemplate. Almighty God Allah reminds us in his Quran that he is the one who makes the trees grow. Just as he makes us grow in a similitude of a plant. The forest and the woods reduces stress, improves our mood, boosts our immune system, lowers our blood pressure, increases our energy level, and it improves our sleep. How did our family move toward acquiring a family cabin? Well, why were we inclined to do that to begin with? And did we have a background for it? I guess it really started with my father. He was a person who enjoyed out of doors and travel and seeing parks and swimming. And he was a press operator in Detroit. And we lived in Mount Clemens. And for those of you who live in Detroit, you know we would travel down Gratiot Avenue and go to Belle Isle. And in Belle Isle, we would canoe and picnic and enjoy the out of doors. I always regretted we never had a chance to swim there. I always wanted to every time my father took us there. But the point is, I got the interest in it from my father. And over the years, was able to pass this down into our children. So what we did is when the children got their own homes, we simply triangulated where was a point that was sort of equidistant from all of our homes, identified that area, considered that the target area, and looked for a property within that zone that met our requirements. And alhamdulillah, we found one that almost exceeded our requirements. And we, having no experience, went out and purchased forest land in the wintertime. We do not recommend that. What you see in the wintertime is just the lovely, beautiful snow, and you have no idea what the land is, the habitats, the echoes, the systems, the roads, or anything. And when it came spring and summer, we were indeed surprised. It looked totally different, but alhamdulillah, everything worked out wonderfully. It exceeded our expectations. But that's how we got located here. And how did we learn the skills necessary to live in the woods? We came from the city, and all I had was Boy Scout training, what my father left with us. And our family, we did go backpacking and camping while we were raising the children. We have some wonderful pictures. We call it we call it ghetto camping. We noticed what everyone else was doing, and those are the things that we went and bought. And some of the basic skills, outdoor skills from Boy Scouts, I taught my sons and daughter, and we had forced backpacking treks, which they really resisted, but appreciate it now, and indeed are doing it with their families. So overcome the resistance. It's important to put this love in them. They'll remember it, inshallah. So we can learn faster now than it took previous generations doing. Just to give you an example of one thing, for years, foraging in the woods, learning which plants were good and edible, took years of experience to go out and without a plate, go out and get a dinner out of the woods. We would be scared to do that. But I now have an app on my phone. All I have to do is take a picture of the plant. And it tells me the genus, the species, the history, everything from Google about that plant, if it's toxic, if it's edible, when it's diseased. Can you imagine? All of those years of experience have been compressed to that app. The same thing it is with YouTube. How to use a chainsaw and cut the trees down, how to clear the trails, how to do all of these things is right on YouTube. Ask Siri. Siri will tell you how to do these things. She will send you anywhere in the world to get the information. So all of that is it lowers or steepens the learning curve. We can learn quickly the things that we needed. And also, don't just totally depend on the apps. Get the books. In case the system isn't working, you have the books. Okay? So the learning and the skills can be shortened. That's the point we're making. All right. Also, the same thing with those necessary outdoor survival skills of hunting and fishing and camping. Those are important. They too are also on YouTube, as well as the Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts. So we're learning to be Khalifa. We're learning to manage the land and its resources. We have well water, firewood, wind or solar energy capability. Built a raised garden, developing farming skills. You want the land to be able to sustain you. That was Allah's intent. We came from the land, and the things that we need are there in the land. Okay? All of those layers that we put in between that make us dependent, that's on us. Your land and your skills are your safety net, inshallah. It's important to plan redundancy in the systems, back up to everything, and then practice going seamlessly from one thing to the next. Okay? There's things that you're going to miss existing in the woods. Things like running to the store to pick up something. Who wants to drive 45 minutes an hour to get some fast foods? No one, so you'll let that go. You might be used to close neighbors. You know, some of our Chicago apartments, you can reach out and touch the house next door, you know, and they can hear every conversation you make, and you can hear theirs. Well, there's no close neighbors here. You want to go out and shoot your gun off the front porch, you can do that. You know, want to scream and holler, nobody hears you but the wildlife. Your neighbors are the wildlife. And you let them know, in my opinion, what you think of them. And to me, they feel your spirit. The other thing that you have to have out here is increased security consciousness. Right. There's no neighborhood watch. You have to have increased personal communication. If you're out on the 40 acres and fall or twist your ankle, you have to have a walkie-talkie or something to call back. Say, I'm out here, I'm injured. Come out in the other vehicle to where I am. And you have to have a description of where you are on the property so that the other person knows where to come to. These are some basic things that in operations out here. So this is why, also power outages occur. Don't think anything of it. We have things for short-term power outages and long-term and extended power outages. Okay? So it's important to do for self-reliance. Environmental education begins early. We have to learn sustainable living habits. Okay? How do we live along with nature and conserve? As we said, gardening and farming. Climate change is real. Global warming is real. You can see aspects of that in the forest and in the changing of seasons. Keep in mind the future of cities. What's happening now below the radar is the cities are being evacuated. We don't see it in that sense. But for all of the reasons that we've been mentioning, people are exiting. Okay? We don't want to be the last one there. At least haven't even thought about it. You see, there's normal city living, that's city lifestyle, full services in the best of times. And then there's the urgent living. That's when you get away temporarily, like we were doing for a while. And then there's survival situations. That's an emergency situation where you have to get out of Dodge. And then there's homesteading, which is long-term development of your homestead on the land. In the living or learning to live on a homestead, it was amazing for us to learn that you have to manage your forest. Can you imagine that? I didn't. That you manage your forest. It's part of being Khalifa. Yes. We had the Department of Natural Resources walk through the property, and to hear someone knowledgeable describe what you have, the beautiful individual habitats, the wetlands and the highlands, and almost the area which is like prairie, and to describe to you or to me the beautiful competition that's going on. When we look at the woods, we see just trees standing quietly. We can't hear the way the trees are talking to each other. I'm not crazy. They communicate with their shadows, with hormones in the ground. Yes, the trees are communicating and competing. And this is pointed out with the agent from the Department of Natural Resources. He says, see, this maple tree is struggling. These other aspens over here, which work like a gang, won't give this maple tree a chance to go. So it's no use in letting him continue to just struggle when the aspens are taking over the whole neighborhood. Let them go. Over here is a big maple tree that is beautiful, that this one can provide maple syrup in the future. So all of these little ones, or all these competing ones, it will be good to cut them out of the way so the maple tree can get the sun it needs and grow strong. And look over here in this area. These are invading species. This is an invading species. This is like a problem species. You don't want this one to grow. You don't want this one to take over. It'll just be a problem for you in the future. Okay? So here was a man that was describing the interaction of what appeared to be a stable, quiet forest. That was enlightening and appreciated because it told us so much. It's part of being Khalifa. And what we have to teach our children in the future is that whatever you want to do or be, include the land in it. Okay? Want to be a doctor, include the land. I want to be an accountant, include the land. I want to be an imam, include the land. I want to be whatever, include the land. That's right. It should be part of it, because you get a whole nother lesson from having and learning from the land. We're caretaker, trustees, and it's important for us to learn that role. We have to repair the breach, repair the damage, fill in the gaps in knowledge that we have. Nature, you will see from out here, takes things back. Let me repeat that. Nature takes things back. And that's true in the forest and in ourselves and in the universe. That's because that's Allah's plan. We see that. We cleared an area and made it a lawn in the forest. If we go away for 3 weeks, come back, new trees are trying to grow in that. That's right. Nature will be taken back over the little yard that we made. And that happens in your yard too. Don't mow the lawn for 3 or 4 weeks. Nature will be taking it back. Come back in a couple months, you have little trees growing right there in your yard. We see that in ourselves. I have to trim my beard. Let it go. It'll be a big beard. And nature will be taking it back. Okay? It went from black to gray. Nature is taking it back. That's Allah's plan. We can work in accord with Allah's plan, or we can work against Allah's plan. That's the decision that man has to make. When man works against Allah's plan and not in accord with it, we get global warming. We get dams where there shouldn't be dams. We get people living too close or living on floodplains. Okay? These are things that if you don't pay for it right away, you'll pay for it later. That's right. Nature has its own clock. Just because you don't see the damage right now, it's coming. It's coming. That's right. That's what our younger generations are screaming at us, baby boomers, about what we didn't do in getting the land ready or leaving the land in a good state for them. And to a great extent, they have a good argument. So let me move on quickly. In the forest, we can see natural selection right before our eyes. The competition and natural selection right before our eyes. And the success of those who have an advantage. The same thing happens with viruses. What we see in the forest happens with viruses. What we see with viruses happens with people in their systems. Competition and natural selection. That's the plan of Allah. Quickly, let me move so we can answer some of the questions that I see coming up. It's important for a generation, one generation has to make the big sacrifice. The big sacrifice. Our family had tried to some extent for years to say, oh, we can pool our money and together we will buy a place. It just doesn't happen like that. Somebody has to say that we're going to do it. We're going to buy the place and we're going to live on the place learn what is required on the place, and then make that the family place. This is not unusual. Many people and groups know that one generation has to make the sacrifice so the following generations have a foundation to go from. So somebody, we would suggest in your family, needs to ante up and buy the place, learn the place, pass on the information, and then pass it on. One generation has to do that, in our opinion. And the beautiful thing is, after that, each generation will have a chance to leave something on the property. Each generation can say that our generation in 2021 did this, and their name is on it. Or our generation did this, and their name is on it. The one thing that we did, or I did, is I named our lake, I named our creeks, I named our hills and trails. They've been named after my wife's parents, my parents, named after my wife, Aggie's Creek, Andrews Lake, Betty's Pond, Claude Trail, Mildred's Trail. All of them have a name, and those names will go on, inshallah, okay? They'll have some meaning to future generations tied to the land. And we also want to say that in doing this, build in capacity for others. It's not just for your family, your individual family. Build a capacity to receive others. You may be the Ansar. You may need to receive Muhajirun. Okay? That's right. As we said, there's no new land being made, and all the land is out there is already owned. You might be the only friendly land. We don't know. We just say prepare yourself and your facility to receive others, inshallah. Now, finally, we're going to close on this, is how do you make sure that it stays in the family from multi-generational, and the management after you're gone? Two major ways. One is a system called a family trust. Okay, correction, cabin trust. There are family trusts, but this specifically is a cabin trust. And it takes into consideration all of the predetermined structure, the roles and responsibilities, unexpected events in your family's lives, and how to pass it on to the next generation, okay? It's not the best way for tax advantages, but it has many benefits. The other way, and we'll close on this note, is the LLCs, limited liability corporations. Okay, that's also another way of maintaining the family cabin, the property, and passing it on. It also has better tax advantages, but also people can sell out or buy out, or it's in my opinion not as committed to the mission. And you have to consider that future generations, there may be divorces in your family, there may be people who don't want to participate any longer, those who may not feel that they get any advantage of it, of the property, and considering it a timeshare or something like that. but life is real, and people have kept property for generations and generations. So it's a thing that we need to consider. It's a thing that passes skills down. It's a legacy to future generations, and all of the family heirlooms, those that get lost when somebody passes, and who's going to keep these? Well, you have a family cabin, a cottage, a place for them to go. And so there's great benefit. And we also want to say finally that this does not take away from the development of New Africa. Nope, not at all. We develop both simultaneously. We can develop the community of New Africa, and individual families can have these in their individual families, and indeed some people may want to come around near to where you've already established a beachhead. One son is already selling some of his land to a friend that wanted to be nearby what he was doing. So, these things are for real. We just have not used them amongst us, and it is time. It's time important to do this now. Thank you, and we pray Allah that this has been helpful, and if we have time for questions, we'll be happy to take any questions. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam. What beautiful. Oh my gosh, so much information. Come on. You can limit your volume. Thank you. So we have a few questions in the chat. Brother Bashir, do you want to get on and ask your question, or do you want me to read it for you? I also wanted to know, I'm giving him a chance to unmute if he would like to. I also want to know what app. Okay, go ahead. If you want to ask your question, go for it.
Yeah, Dr. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam.
Thank you very much for your presentation today. My question was, were you suggesting the move to a rural area as a survival strategy in the environment that we're having in our cities today? And one other thing I'd like you to do, which I don't think you did, could you describe your property? I know you have described your property to me in the past, but for those who may not be aware, I know you mentioned 40 acres in the Mule. I don't know if you mentioned the dimensions of your property and what the property description is. Thank you.
Well, thank you for those questions. Yes, the survival aspect is part and parcel of it already. It goes without saying. It wasn't the primary thing, but it does offer that capability. And that should be developed in it. Okay, it's a legacy and a heritage and a skills transfer, but if it has to become an emergency retreat, it has that capability. And I didn't go into the security aspect of it at all, but indeed that is a part of it. That's another. So far as our property here, it is 40 acres. It is 40 acres, and on it we have a small lake. We have a pond, and we have a creek, Aggie's Creek, and we have little steep hills, Mildred's Hill, which is one of the steepest hills on our property. We have Claude's Hill, which is my father's trails hill. So we have lakes, ponds, creeks, and hills, and wetlands on the property, 40 acres. So you're capable of hunting and fishing, and we have a campsite.
Thank you for that. We have another question by Brother Rod Bashir. You want to get on camera, or not get on camera, get on the mic and ask it?
Yes, assalamu alaikum, everyone.
Assalam.
Thank you, Dr. Ramadan, for that presentation and expanding our scope on such ideas. In your situation or in general, do you suggest that such property should be put in a trust?
Yes. That's what I was the last thing we mentioned was they have cabin trusts for keeping the family cabin. They're actually called cabin trusts, or limited liability corporations, LLC, that holds the property. You have to determine which is the better for your family and your family's commitment, your family's ability, and you have to assess what to be the expenses of the property going forward. Will you have to include the property's ability to maintain itself? Will you rent it out as an Airbnb, or we see here becoming an environmental educational center. It won't be enough to make money on that, but we set up a trust fund for it. Okay, so there's a financial planning that has to go along with it. There's a cost associated with maintaining this sort of entity.
Thank you. I'm sorry if that was asked before. I missed some of your presentation.
Okay.
All right. Thank you for the question, Brother Rod. We have one more question, but a hand is raised. I'm not sure who that is, though, if you want to ask your question. And please be brief, because we only have 2 more minutes as part of Talim.
Okay. Yeah, assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam.
My question is this property which you're talking about, is it here in Illinois?
No.
Okay. And could you?
But it could be. It could be. That's what I was saying. As long as the property is productive and you can sustain yourself and family off of it, it can be a shorefront property, a prairie, or any kind.
Oh, okay. Inshallah, I understand. I love that. That's a wonderful idea and presentation. I really like that idea. I know you've been talking about it for a while, and I'm like, okay, that really sounds like something wonderful to be connected with and to do and to pass on. Yeah. Okay, and shukran jazilan. Thank you very much for that.
Well, thank you.
Alhamdulillah. I think resoundingly, folks have really appreciated everything that you've shared with us today. May Allah continue to bless you and your family. I know we've been able to utilize the space for board retreats and such, and it's just been a wonderful, wonderful time. So I am going to say to all the believers, thank you for coming to Talim today. Again, subscribe to our channel. Inshallah, we'll see many of you at Eid coming up, and we will have on-site and online at 10 o'clock on the 20th on Tuesday, inshallah. And please give your gratitudes in the chat for Imam Dr. Ramadan's presentation today. And may you all have a blessed week.
Inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam.